Good morning, everyone. Let me begin by saying that this has been my first NEADS conference, and now that we're on the home stretch, I think I can safely say that it's been a wonderful experience. I say this because of the people I've met, people with vision and resilience, and people through who their own resourcefulness have empowered themselves and others. Today, my talk really is about resourcefulness, using the resources you have at hand. I'm talking about a do-it-yourself approach to accessing print material electronically. But before I begin, I'd like to give just a little background. I'm a faculty member at Langara College in Vancouver. I'm a librarian at SILS, which is the BC College and Institute Library Service. We're a provincial service that provides accessible formats to students at more than 20 institutions in British Columbia. The sort of thing we do is some of the sorts of things that were just talked about. When we can't get publisher files, which is most of the time, we'll take a textbook, we'll cut the spine off, we'll run it through a scanner, we'll perform OCR on that, optical character recognition. We'll manually edit the files to make sure they're accurate, they don't have inconsistencies or text out of order. And then we turn that into a format that's applicable for our client. So it could be e-text, could be a DAISY book, could be an MP3, or a number of other sorts of things that that particular individual needs. So this is our core function, to create accessible formats. It's what we're paid to do, but increasingly we find that it's not enough just to make formats. People still fall through the cracks. My theory is that there's a continuum when it comes to print accessibility. The first point on the continuum is the format, the content. So it could be the e-text or DAISY book or even a print book. The second point on the continuum is technology. So that would be the hardware or software required to access the information. The third point, and an often overlooked point, is training and support. If one of these points on the continuum breaks down, I think we can say that there's a crack, and normally by the time we notice there's a crack, someone's already fallen through it. So what's the solution? Well, if you could plug the crack, that would be good, but to me that seems like it's treating a symptom. A better solution, I think, is to treat the problem at its root. In this case, the metaphor I'd like to use is raising the floor. This notion of, I'm a librarian, so I have to cite my sources. This notion of raising the floor was introduced to me by Mr. Fruchterman, who gave a keynote address at the CSUN conference on technology and persons with disabilities, which is a fantastic conference that happens every year in the States. This notion of raising the floor entails enabling everyone, regardless of extenuating circumstances, to obtain access. Now, I know I'm mixing my metaphors a bit, but if we raise the floor, raise the minimum level of accessibility, people who fall through the cracks won't have quite so far to drop. So many of you will be familiar with this as the idea of universal access, which is a goal that we are admittedly a long way from realizing. But I think, as has been pointed out over the course of the weekend, it's a goal towards which we've made significant headway. Moreover, it's a goal I think we can all work towards. First of all, for ourselves, second of all, for our friends, and third, for people we don't even know, for people who don't know the opportunities and possibilities that are available right now to everyone. At the initial talk on Friday evening, Dr. Sakai noted that we are in need of timely and cost-effective solutions, and I couldn't agree more. Right now, I think it's a fairly exciting time when it comes to this, particularly to the second part of the continuum I mentioned earlier, which is technology. Right now, the technology options I'm going to present will not work for everyone in every situation, but just as you need a whisk for many recipes, you don't need them for all. It's an important implement to have in your kitchen. So I'm going to present you with some implements today. You can put them in your kitchen. Maybe you'll need to pull them out one day, maybe not, but they're good tools to have nonetheless. Also, as I move on, I don't want to necessarily recommend one software package over the other. I don't also want to denigrate commercial packages, which are often very, very good, often also quite expensive. The most important criteria in accessibility is, does it work? So if you find something that works for you, you've had success. So right now, there are two trends combining to create those cost-effective and timely solutions that will enable our recipe. The first is cheap hardware, the second is free or cheap software. There's no one-size-fits-all solution, but everyone in this audience can experiment, ask questions, tinker, get your hands dirty, hack, repurpose technology, and you can create for yourself a custom accessibility solution. This is my favorite part of the presentation now. This is show and tell. And for those of you who can see me up here, I'm holding up a really little notebook computer. This is an example of a kind of piece of technology we've put together that we're now lending out to our students. This is an ASUS E. It's a sub notebook. This particular one costs about $400, and we've loaded it up with all sorts of accessibility software, the kind of stuff I'm going to talk to you about today, but it's got a screen reader on it. It can do text-to-speech. It can read DAISY books. That's mainly what we're using this for now, is a DAISY player, because it costs the same as a Victor player, DAISY player, or about the same. If you want to see this later, you can come up and play with it. Oh, there we go. So as I mentioned, this is an ASUS E, the one I held up. There are other models of sub-notebook out right now. If I was going to buy one right now, I'd buy the Ace or Aspire, but there's more coming out every day. The Acer is kind of the best price point right now between cost and what it can do. It's got a larger screen and a slightly larger keyboard, which is nice. But basically the whole point is that any old notebook will work. If you've got a computer someone's given to you, it'll probably work. If you've got an old office PC, a 5-year-old computer sitting in your house or that someone's given you, it can be made to work as well. A few caveats, there's things you'll probably need. First of all, you'll probably need a computer that's running a Windows operating system. This is because the free and cheap software I'm talking to you about today has only really been released for Windows. I have nothing against Linux or Mac. It's just that most of this stuff operates in a Windows environment. Depending on exactly what you need the computer for, you'll probably need sound. So you will likely need a computer with onboard sound, a sound card. You'll also probably need speakers. Some of you may also be used to using custom input devices. Those things can be added on. This little computer here has a very small keyboard. That's not going to work for everyone. You could plug in a bigger keyboard. The monitor is kind of small. You can plug in a bigger monitor. So you know what you need. You can add those things in for yourself. So up on the slide right now is a list of programs I'm going to run through very, very quickly. And these are all things that are pretty much installed on this little computer here. The first thing is Thunder. Thunder is a screen reader. It's free. You can download it on the internet. And it's analogous to JAWS. It's not as good as JAWS, I think, but it will feel familiar to those of you who are JAWS users. Thunder website says that it's free of charge for everyone in any organization. It's a quick and easy download, and it's for everyone who needs it. That said, always a good idea to go and look for more information on their website. And there's links to all these websites on your USB key in the presentation. I've also brought a number of CDs with me. Come and grab one afterwards. The CD's got all the programs on it. Help yourself. Limited number, first come, first serve. Also, I've got a whole bunch of bookmarks, so grab a bookmark while you're here too. Thunder is quite useful, I find, when combined with other programs. I like to use Thunder with Webby, which is an accessible browser. Basically, what Webby allows you to do is turn a normal website into a text-based website. So what we see up here on the screen is the NEADS website, pretty much the same way you would see it in any other browser like Explorer, Firefox. So you can see the text button up on the top. There's a keyboard shortcut for that, of course, but if you hit that text button, it turns it into a text version, and this is a good example of a well-designed website. Chris, I don't know if you're the one who designed this website, but if you did, good job. This website is highly accessible and would run very well through this sort of browser. I really like the Webby because it comes with a number of other interesting applications, little kind of add-ons that I'm going to run through really quickly. The first of all is an accessible RSS reader. RSS stands for really simple syndication, and it's basically a way to have website content delivered to your computer, and it updates automatically. It's kind of like a cross between website and email. It's a great way to stay up to date on particular topics. An accessible podcatcher for those of you who use podcasts. Now, this is accessible in the sense that it's a text interface that can be parsed very easily by a text-to-speech engine. It's not accessible in the sense of captioning. That's an obstacle that still needs to be overcome. The next little bit on Webby is an accessible Project Gutenberg. For those of you who aren't familiar with Project Gutenberg, it's a repository of public domain works. So on the slide there, I've downloaded Milton's Paradise Lost, and many of you will know this is a very, very long poem. It took me about 5 seconds to download it on my home broadband, and it came out in a highly text-readable format. Not the kind of headings that would be ideal, but nonetheless easily parsable by text-to-speech. The other thing Webby includes is an accessible directory. That's basically a text overlay for something called the ODP, or Open Directory Project. The Open Directory Project is a list of human-edited links. You know, sometimes you go into Google. Google's great, I love Google, but sometimes you get garbage and you want something that's been compiled by a human. So the ODP is a human-compiled set of links. And what you find here is a text overlay for that again is really useful for people who use screen readers. Other text-to-speech software includes Read Please. I think many of you may have used Read Please. I find it's recommended very often in disability service offices. It's free. There's also a paid version. This is what it looks like, and up on the slide here you can see that it's just very simple. You can input the text, you can press play, you can pause it. You can speed up the rate of the text, and you can also change the font size. If you use this a lot, I think you'll find it has some limitations, which is why I preferred another program called Text Aloud. Now, Text Aloud is the one thing in this presentation that is really paid. It costs 29 bucks American, so the price for us depends on what our dollar's at. But the one thing I really like about this program is it includes a voice called Scansoft Tom. That's his voice. He sounds really good. The other great thing about this program is that it allows you to very easily produce an MP3 that you can take with you, and it produces it very, very quickly. This is what the interface looks like up there. I've just cut and pasted in a first chapter of a novel. The other cool thing about these programs are that as they generate the text for you, they highlight the word that's being read or the phrase that's being read. And this is really ideal for people who learn best by listening and reading simultaneously. So for many of our students at SILS, this has been a really effective and cost-effective solution for them. Now, I had a really interesting conversation last night with a young lady who I earlier saw sitting over there. I don't see her now. Hi. Hi. Yeah, she suggested a really great I guess it's a web-based application called Spoken Text. And I don't have a slide for it because I just discovered it last night, and I went up to my room and I tried it out. But it allows you to, on the web, input text and automatically generate an MP3 file or an audio file that can be embedded in a website or that you can listen to live online. And the voice is also very great with that. So if you go to Google and you Google Spoken Text, you'll find it. And I just heard about it. It's developed in Canada. I look forward to testing it out some more. So that's not in my slide anywhere, but just try to remember Spoken Text. Now, I'm going to talk about the AMI Daisy player. But before I do that, it seems to me that some of you might not be familiar with the Daisy audiobook format. Daisy is an audiobook format. In some ways, it'll feel and sound really similar to the MP3s many of you already use. The advantage of Daisy is that it's highly navigable. So just imagine with a print book, you can change from chapter to chapter, heading to heading, page to page. Daisy Book replicates the feeling of this. AMI is a free Daisy player. It's open source and you can download it. It's also on the CD. And this is what it looks like up on the slide here. Along the left-hand side, you can see that there are chapter headings, section headings. So if you clicked on one of those, it would take you automatically to that chapter section. You can also navigate by page. So this is really useful for those of you who use audio formats or e-text formats. If you're in class, the instructor asks you to flip to page 77. That's almost impossible to do quickly on it with an MP3 or an audio tape. This allows you to do that. So DAISY is kind of like the Cadillac of alternate formats, in my opinion, and AMI is a great way to access it. You know, for those of you who are already packing around computers with you, there's really no need to pack around a hardware DAISY player, which is what many people use right now. I'm going to really quickly run through this. I think I'm running out of time. Winamp is a media player, kind of like Windows Media. It's pretty normal, pretty average. It becomes useful when you pair it with a program called Pacemaker. Pacemaker allows you to speed up your MP3s without making you sound like a chipmunk. The last program I'm going to talk about is a Magnifier, and I think many of you are familiar with magnifiers. Unfortunately, I couldn't get a screen capture of this because of the way the software works. But it's a free download. It's a very small download. It can run off a flash drive even. And it allows you to enlarge your screen or a portion of your screen. Again, not as good as Zoom Text, but still a very effective solution. So, in conclusion, I'd like to say that you're all a bunch of resourceful people. I've seen that this weekend. And my advice to you is just to try it. The thing about computers and technology is something you learn by trying. You don't learn about it really by coming to a conference and hear some guy speak. You learn about it by getting your hands dirty, by trying it, and by asking questions when you need help. You can do it. So if you have any questions, do feel free to contact me. All my contact information is up here. It's also on the USB key you've all been given. Don't stop asking questions. I look forward to your questions and comments in the question period. Finally, I need to mention that all the pictures in the presentation were taken from Creative Commons and they're licensed legally under a Creative Commons license. Thank you all.